Welcome back to the Shared Security Podcast. And in this episode, we're discussing the newly released OWASP Top 10 for 2025. What's changed, what stayed the same, and why it matters for application security. So whether you're a red teamer, a security leader, a developer, or someone trying to bridge the gap between risky code and business risk, this update affects you. And joining me are Scott Wright and Kevin Johnson, which I'm sure will provide their thoughts as we discuss this topic in particular.
I do think it's important to be a little pedantic.
Of course.
This is not the release of the OWASP Top 10 for 2025. This is the release candidate. And the reason I think it's important to say that is we still have time to submit changes, feedback, things like that. And there has been, if you follow the GitHub repo, which I do, there is a significant number of pull requests that have happened to fix everything from typos to additional information and stuff like that. And I the only reason I'm saying we need to correct the statement is because I want to encourage people to get involved. And this is, if you're not going to get involved in any other time, this is the best time to get involved. You actually have a chance to move the needle.
Yes, that's a great point. That, again, just to correct that this is the release candidate. So very important time to submit feedback and to suggest corrections, things like that. So yes, and we will have the links for the GitHub repo and for the article that has kind of the breakdown of what we'll talk about. But we definitely encourage people to get involved with this. So why don't we take a step back, though, and talk about just a little bit of the history of the OWASP Top 10. So it's not really on a cycle, right, Kevin? I mean,
it is on a cycle. I mean, officially, it's every 3 years, postponed for every 4. I don't mean that.
No.
I don't mean that rudely. I just mean it as officially, it is released every 3 years.
Yeah,
but the last 4 releases, there were 4 years between. It's kind of like submitting a talk to RSA. Every year they come out with a deadline, and every year RSA extends the deadline for calls, call for papers. The OWASP Top 10 is the same way. It's a 3-year cycle, but I don't believe they've hit the 3-year mark a single time. I mean, this is very similar, again, not trying to bash anybody. I think Andrew has done some great stuff here. It's a group of volunteers.
Yes.
Right. Like, you have a very small group of people that are running a project that touches almost every aspect of application security. And as such, there are going to be delays. Every single person involved in the project officially has a day job. Andrew Vanderstock, the lead of the thing, is actually the executive director of OWASP, right? So he has, and he was not like I've heard people say, well, that's why he's top 10. No, that's not true. He was hired as the executive director after the top 10 existed.
Yeah, but I think just looking back over the history of the OWASP Top 10, I mean, this has been really, how people kind of evaluate software security. I mean, going back to the beginnings, right, Kevin? I mean, this is kind of why this was created in the first place, was to at least give people an idea of what are the vulnerabilities contained within web applications. It started with web applications, but obviously this has morphed into more things over the years.
Well, I don't know that I agree with that. I don't know that it's morphed into more things. I think it's morphed into what its goal was. If you look at the original 2 releases of the OWASP Top 10, and I reserve the right to change that number, it was about specific vulnerabilities that were found. We have cross-site scripting, we have SQL injection, we have and it has changed, morphed, whatever, not into more things, but into a more generalization. As a matter of fact, I think this release candidate is actually the first version that is truly a list of categories of flaws. Because even the 2021
and not flaws
version,
themselves,
right. The 2021 version was a hybrid still. You had SSRS, right, on there. And this is the first version that I recall that every single one of the top 10 are types of flaws, not specific flaws. I think I said that right. Right. These are more categories.
Yes.
Right. You don't have cross-site scripting or SSRF. You have broken access control, which is a very broad. And one of the nice things about this new version is they actually list the different CWEs per category, right? Which is neat. And 9 of the 10, I'm sorry, I apologize. 8 of the 10, it used to be 9 of the 10. This new version is now 8 of 10, are from a survey, not from data, which I find interesting.
Yeah.
That was the last version, 2021 was the first version they did that. Every year, every time they do this, there is a call for data, right? Was it 2017, I think, where Veracode submitted a ton of great data.
I worked there at the time. Yes.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Contributed data to the project, and the project team, according to the project team, what they do is they analyze the data and they come up with a list of vulnerabilities based on what is found in the data. But 2 of the ones in the OWASP top 10, and quickly scanning again, it's actually the same way in 2021. I misspoke. Don't come from data; they come from an online poll.
Right.
So we should count ourselves lucky that we don't have a vulnerability called Hacky McHacker Face or something. But the supply chain, the software supply chain failures and the logging and alerting failures both come from polling, and I can understand that. While I disagree with doing that, and that's a Kevin opinion.
Yeah.
I understand doing it because both of those flaw types aren't typically found in testing reports, which is what the majority of the data is from, right? Yeah. I tested this app, I found these vulnerabilities, and that goes into the data. When we pen test, when we do DAS scans, when we do stuff like that, we don't typically find supply chain failures and alerting failures because those are back-end system things. And I feel like I just babbled a whole bunch of stuff at once.
Now, one thing to talk about too is that most of the data that's submitted is actually from automated testing tools.
Almost all of the data
right?
is coming from automated testing tools.
Yeah,
yes.
which is
and I'm embarrassed to say that because I am a pen test firm,
right?
And we have talked for years about submitting data, and we run into a lot of problems. We've run into problems with getting good formats for data from the OWASP Top 10 project. Yeah. And we've also run into the problem where our contractual obligations pretty much prevent us from sharing a lot of data.
Well, what's interesting, I know like BugCrowd was one of the, they said that was on the list of data submitted, and they're running a crowdsourced pen testing. So there may be, I'd be interested to know like how much of that was manual, like pen test data. But
yeah, can we not call that crowdsourced pen testing, please?
What would you like to call it?
Crowdsourced bug research, vulnerability report.
Okay.
I have an ethical and technical complaint about calling any type of vulnerability bug bounty program a pen test. Let me rephrase that. I've found
pen testing.
They're not doing.
They're all doing pen testing now, though. To be fair,
there is a definition of pen testing that none of those programs currently fit. And the issue with calling those pen tests, in my opinion, is the lack of control of what the testers are doing. And I mean lack of control by the bug bounty program. And I actually I know this is a common misconception. People think I don't like bug bounty programs. I love bug bounty programs. I think they work well where they work. I just don't. It's not a pen.
Maybe that's another topic for a
that's definitely another. We are tangenting, and I'll stop.
Yeah, let's get back to the OWASP Top 10. So data aside, right? There's obviously a lot of data that they get from different vendors. Most of this is automated. I think that's one of the reasons they have the survey, though, is for I think pen test firms like yourself and others to comment on here's the things that we're seeing in the real world, which I think is still very, very important. But to be fair, a lot of this data is from automated tools. So having said that, though, this year they put in a couple new categories. One of them you already mentioned, Kevin, which is the software supply chain failures. That's actually an expansion of the old vulnerable and outdated components. So personally, I like how they've expanded that into supply chain failures, because that's really what most of those issues are, that they lead up to that, like you mentioned. Then the other category was the last one, which is mishandling of exceptional conditions. I do like the word exceptional for some reason. I don't know why. But that is essentially all error handling kind of rolled into one, right? And then the other...
Well, it's more than error handling.
Oh, yeah, that's more. Right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. And then alerting was added to the logging category.
They changed it from monitoring to alerting, which I found interesting. And I'm glad they did, because I've had a large number of people when I'm teaching classes and things like that there is a pedantic difference between logging and monitoring, but very rarely do you find people that in their day-to-day job use the difference, right? Many people consider those the same term. They are not by definition, but so I'm glad by changing the title of the category, it makes it easier to get people to understand the difference.
Yeah. So I guess my take on the overall top 10, I think a lot of it makes sense. I think some of the shifts in things like insecure design kind of sliding down a couple spots, I understand their reasoning, because the last time this was released, the threat modeling and the whole secure design thing, architecture, design, and review, I mean, it's still a big problem. We're not seeing enough of that being done in the industry, but there are a lot more tools. I think it's gotten a little bit better from my purview, but it's still one of the biggest issues that we still see. Not doing proper design. I agree with you.
I think one of the problems we see is, I think there is a difference in the testing that you and I traditionally do in what automated tools find, right?
Yeah.
Here at Secure Ideas, we do a lot of application testing, and I mean, I'm literally doing a application pen test this week, right? Like the started Friday, and I go through the end of next week on this test, and a large number of the apps I'm testing for this customer are older apps that aren't being run through DAST or even SAST solutions in the development, because the app has been developed. It's just being maintained at this point. And so when we say things like, well, insecure design is getting better because we're working on threat modeling and all this kind of stuff, those are valid statements for a subset of applications.
Right.
And so the visibility that you and I have is different, because, right. And that doesn't make it wrong. That just changes perspective, right? When this goes back to, and I've ranted about this before, is we all as an industry need to do better at providing data into this project, myself included. But I like what they've done here. I am very, very happy that we have made a decision as to whether or not this is categories or individual funding, right?
I agree.
I'm really, really happy about the move to categorization as a whole. We can argue specific placement of CWEs and topics. Like I can make the argument that software data integrity failure is the same as mishandling of exception controls. But that's just an argument. And I want to be clear, I don't believe that. I'm just using that as an example. That's all why this is a release candidate, is for us to be able to say, hey, this CWE should be here instead of there. And this is where it's important. And one of the reasons I think it's important, I don't think we've said it so far. One of the reasons I think it's important is that this list is the list that so many of the standards, so many of the regulations, so many of the contracts require us will value them, right? And so it's important. This is probably one of the most important projects to come out of OWASP.
I agree.
Right? And it has to be done well. And I love the fact that they're doing it. I I don't want anybody to take what I'm saying as a negative against the project. I think the project has accomplished something significant. I want to see where this goes.
I think we often forget how tightly intertwined the OWASP Top 10 is with so many things that security teams are doing today. So, I mean, pretty much every vendor tool that does any type of scanning has some linkage into the OWASP Top 10, mainly from a compliance perspective, right? Of course, auditors want to see that box checked. So thinking about all the tools that we have, but also how, you know, in the blog, which we'll link in the show notes for people if they want more detail on this, they talked about kind of how they were working to transition things into like CVSS v3 and then into eventually v4, and they just didn't have enough time because v4 is so different. And for those of you that aren't familiar with CVSS, it's kind of the standard of rating vulnerabilities, right? One of the standards that I'd probably say is maybe the most popular. And it always has had some issues, right? Especially around exploitability. And you often have to get your customers to fill out the other pieces that you as a tester don't know. But they've taken good steps to kind of like, you know, provide more of that information, especially with these CWEs. And I think that's a positive step as well. So yeah, overall, I'm really happy with it. And I agree with a lot of the movement that they made, and as well as some of the new categories too. Scott, any perspective from you?
Man, I've been biting my tongue
I'll bet you
for the last 20 minutes.
I'm sorry, man.
Chomping at the bit to say something.
Yeah.
Actually, no. No, I'm actually glad we cover it, because the last time I looked at the OWASP Top 10, despite the fact that I often, probably several times a month, mention it to some clients or whoever, right?
Yeah.
Because I know it's important. I don't know, I'm not an application developer or tester, but I think it's actually really interesting, the evolution that's happened with this thing. And as Kevin says, I think it is really important. And I think it's observable. You know, like the last time I looked at it, I was looking at actual vulnerabilities, right? Versus now it is categories, and it makes total sense. So I'm 2 thumbs up.
Nice. And I mean, you did some auditing back in the day too, right? So you know
I'm actually a certified information systems.
Oh, you are. So that's right. Yeah. So you're a certified box checker.
Box checker.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Rob Fuller Mubix said once that he's a certified checkbox unchecker.
Yes. Yes.
So very good. All right, guys. Well, this is great. Again, for those of you that want to learn more about the OWASP Top 10 or get involved, which we highly recommend because this is a great project for the security community, we'll have all those links in the show notes, and you can definitely check that out. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. And until next time, stay safe, stay secure, and stay private. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode. Be sure to subscribe wherever you like to get your podcasts. Visit sharedsecurity.net for merch, previous episodes, and more. If you'd like to help support the podcast, join our Patreon to get ad-free episodes and many more exclusive supporter-only benefits. Visit sharedsecurity.net/supporter for more details.